My name is Dr. Ella Agood. I'm 35 years old, and for over a decade, my own family called me the dropout, the lazy one, the failure. They said it at dinner tables, at reunions, in front of my cousin's kids. I never corrected a single one of them. Then one random Tuesday evening, my mother's phone lit up with a news segment showing my name on screen, and she called me crying, saying 7 words I had been waiting almost 20 years to hear. If you truly love and appreciate your parents, take just 1 second to subscribe to this channel. It means a lot to us. And before you go, tell me in the comments, which country are you watching from? I was 17 when I first left college. Not because I was lazy, but because my father had just lost his job. Our electricity had already been cut off twice in 3 months, and my younger sister Nora needed medication that cost more than my mother earned in a week of double shifts. I sat on the edge of my bed one night with a flashlight and a notebook, ran the numbers, and realized college simply didn't fit anywhere in them. So I left. I told my parents it was temporary. They chose to hear permanent. What followed looked like failure from the outside, but felt, from the inside, like the most disciplined stretch of my life. I worked 3 jobs at once, a hospital cafeteria by day, a medical supply warehouse in the evenings, and weekends volunteering at a free clinic downtown, where a doctor named Patricia Howe looked at me across a patient's bed one day and told me I had good hands, that I noticed things other people missed. I held on to that sentence for years, spending it slowly on the nights I nearly gave up. At 20, I reapplied to university and got in on a full merit scholarship. I didn't rush to tell my parents, not to hide it, but because I'd slowly learned their approval wasn't oxygen. I could live without it. I already had been. Medical school came next, then residency, then a surgical specialty that costs you the concept of sleep for about 4 years straight. I became a trauma surgeon, then moved into cardiothoracic surgery, literally holding hearts in my hands while my family still introduced me at Christmas as the one who dropped out. My cousin Priya once said it casually in front of her own kids, the same year I completed a 17-hour surgery that saved a 64-year-old grandfather's life. I smiled. I said nothing. That was always the pattern. Not weakness, just a decision I'd made early on to let the work speak. Because my energy was finite and it belonged to my patients, not to people who had already decided who I was. By 34, I'd become the youngest chief surgeon at Meridian General. The hospital ran a press release, and a local journalist doing a feature on women in medicine reached out to interview me. I told her honestly about the gap year, the cafeteria job, Dr. Howe, the flashlight and notebook. I never mentioned my family by name. The story didn't need them. The segment aired on a Tuesday at 6:47 in the evening. I wasn't watching. I was finishing rounds, checking on a post-op patient who'd survived a double bypass and was now begging a nurse for real coffee. I told him absolutely not, and he laughed. And that was exactly the moment my phone started buzzing in my coat pocket. And what happened over the next few hours changed something I'd carried for 20 years. My mother sent the first message in our family group chat, 4 words, Channel 9. Now please. Then my aunt, 3 exclamation points. Then Priya. Then my uncle, who'd once called me a dreamer at my grandfather's funeral and meant it as an insult. All of them suddenly pointing at a television screen where the caption under my name read Chief Surgeon, Meridian General. My phone rang. My mother was already crying before I said hello, the deep kind of crying that carries years inside it. I stood in that hallway and felt something shift in my chest. Not forgiveness exactly, but the beginning of a door I hadn't realized was still closed. I told her I had to check on my patient, that I'd call her that night, and I went back to work. I called her back at 11:43, sitting in my car in the hospital parking garage, still in scrubs, eating a granola bar because it was the first thing I'd eaten since 6 a.m. That was the version of my life no television segment ever showed. The cold food, the missed dinners, the birthdays acknowledged over text between surgeries. She answered on the first ring, clearly waiting. Her voice was different now, careful, like someone who'd rehearsed something and hoped it came out right. She told me she'd watched the segment 3 times, that my father had gone completely silent in his armchair watching it, that my aunt had already called 4 relatives, that Priya had posted something online about being proud of family, which I found deeply ironic but didn't say. She talked for a long time. Then she said the thing I'd been waiting nearly 2 decades to hear without even realizing it. I think we didn't understand what you were doing. I think we got it wrong. 7 words. Not eloquent, not some grand tearful apology, just real and hers, and it clearly cost her something to say out loud. I sat with it in the dark of that parking garage, then said simply, I know, Mom. Not it's okay. Just truth meeting truth at midnight. What I didn't tell her that night was everything else the segment had quietly set in motion. A chief of medicine at a nationally ranked hospital reached out about a joint research position in cardiac trauma innovation. A medical journal editor asked me to write about women in surgical leadership. And a 17-year-old girl named Sophia Reyes, who had left school 6 months earlier to help support her family after her father's accident, had watched that same segment with her mother across the city. Her mother found my name, found my contact form, and wrote me a message at 9:30 that night asking if I had any advice for a daughter who felt like her future had already been taken from her. I read it 4 times, then wrote her a real answer. I told Sophia that leaving school isn't the same as leaving your future. I told her about the cafeteria job, the warehouse, the flashlight, the notebook. I told her the years that look like nothing from the south side are often the years that build everything. I told her my door was open. Sophia came in 3 weeks later, notebook already open on her lap, asking sharper questions than residents twice her age usually ask. I connected her with a re-enrollment counselor, a scholarship program, a volunteer pathway to start building experience while finishing school. 8 months later, she sent me an update. She'd re-enrolled. She'd been accepted into a pre-med mentorship track. She signed the message, "Because of the chair under your name, I decided to write mine." I printed that message and kept it in my desk drawer. On the hard days, and there are always hard days in this work, I open that drawer and read her words. And I remember exactly why a decade of silence was worth it. Not for the segment, not for the title, not even entirely for my mother's 7 words. For this, proof that a life built quietly and stubbornly against everyone else's low expectations doesn't just save itself. It reaches back and pulls someone else forward too.